Do the San Francisco 49ers have a quarterback problem? I don't know, but we're going to discuss it all right now, and we're going to dive deep into it and talk about all the things that came out of today's meetings, owners' meetings, that is, in Phoenix, Arizona, with Kyle Shanahan. Because John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they've talked to the media quite a bit in the last 2 days. We're going to break apart everything that they've discussed and the news and really get to the bottom. Do the 49ers have a quarterback problem? We're going to get into it all right now. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, SDS? Hope you guys are having a phenomenal day. We've made it to Tuesday, but we're going to figure out if we can actually make it to Sunday. We'll find out because we did have Kyle Shanahan speak to media today, and we got more fun stuff to talk about. More questions potentially than we got answers. We're going to talk about it all. But of course, a big point of emphasis these last 2 days has been the San Francisco 49ers quarterback position. Obviously, there are a lot of moving parts with the quarterback position. I think we all understand this. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that, hey, we have a lot of questions in regards to the San Francisco 49ers and who the potential starting quarterback will be in 2023. Because for the simple fact that the guy who won 8 games last year tore his UCL and had to have a UCL repair surgery and is currently in a pretty extensive arm brace right now. He's not going to be throwing at OTAs. The San Francisco 49ers also drafted a quarterback very high in the draft and gave up a ton to go get him. So you would think that that guy could be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Some believe he should be the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback, hands down. But then the San Francisco 49ers go and sign Sam Darnold. And again, you look at Sam Darnold's contract, you look at the way it's structured, you look that he has incentives built in that allows him to earn up to 11 million plus based on playtime incentives. There are some questions out there, and we're going to decide and determine if both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan answered those questions or if there are more questions remaining. And we are going to discuss if all of this stuff going on is indeed a problem or a good problem. So we're going to talk about that all today. Hopefully, I set the scene well for you guys of what we're going to get into. Also, there's a lot of other news. There's a lot of other news that came out again from the owners' meeting. We heard from Jed York. We heard from Kyle Shanahan today. And before we get into the quarterback specifics, let's talk about some of the other news, and then we will transition back into the quarterback conversation. All right. So let's get into that right about now. So, hey, preseason is going to be here before we know it. And it does sound like the San Francisco 49ers are in talks with the Oakland Raiders to have joint practice in Las Vegas. I actually like this. I think joint practices are phenomenal. I had the opportunity to cover joint practices this offseason in Minnesota and got to see the Vikings and 49ers go after it for a couple days. And that was where, like, I firmly believed and got to watch Nick Bosa go one-on-one with Christian Darrisaw day in, day out. And I have a lot of respect for Christian Darrisaw as a left tackle. I call him Mini Trent because he reminds me a lot of Trent Williams. He's not Trent Williams, but he reminds me of Trent Williams. Anyways, that's where I got to see Nick Bosa in one practice have like 6 sacks. And I was like, oh yeah, defensive player of the year, lock it up. It's not even a conversation. Nick Bosa is going to go crazy this year. And that happened in joint practices. So I like this. I'm a big fan of joint practices. I think joint practices are more impactful and better for teams than the actual preseason games themselves. I really do think that's the case. So the 49ers now, again, are in talks to go to Las Vegas, have these joint practices, which means they are going to see their good old friend Jimmy Garoppolo in preseason, in joint practices again. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers defense knows Jimmy G really well. So that could be a fun one. That's going to be a wild joint practice with Jimmy G going up against the San Francisco 49ers starting defense. But it's not him in a 49ers jersey. He'll be wearing black and silver. It'll be wild to see. But again, San Francisco 49ers, we got Cleveland Farrell, so it'll be going a little both ways. Not as impactful to us as probably the quarterback position. But hey, we got that move as well. Let's talk a little bit about this particular move. Apparently, according to Matt Barrows of The Athletic, the 49ers are reportedly planning on borrowing upwards of $120 million from the NFL to fund upgrades to Levi's Stadium. And also, too, I think in part of why this is occurring is because the San Francisco 49ers, and Jed York spoke to this, feels that the Super Bowl could return to Levi's. And they feel really good about that. And it could be sooner rather than later. So because they are going to throw their hat into the ring to host yet another Super Bowl, if you don't remember, they hosted Super Bowl 50. They want to host another one. So they also want to upgrade the stadium. And hey, I am not opposed to upgrading Levi's Stadium. Now, Levi's Stadium gets a lot of flack because it was an abrupt move. Going from San Francisco to Levi's to Santa Clara, from the rich history of Candlestick, the location of Candlestick, to then going to Santa Clara. It was a bit jarring, right? It was a bit jarring. I think some fans are still having a hard time, wrapping their heads around the fact that Levi's Stadium isn't in San Francisco. But I will come to the San Francisco 49ers defense in the sense of, and fans as well, the environment at Levi's Stadium for game days, I'm pretty proud of it. I am. I will be honest. I've been going to games at this stadium since 2017, and it has been a progression. Obviously, you guys remember fans didn't want to even show up for this because, one, the 49ers weren't good, and two, it was a weird kind of transition. Like, again, it's just an abrupt transition for fans. But I will say the energy at Levi's Stadium the past couple years, dating back to the 2019 season, has been fantastic. There is a home field advantage when you play at Levi's Stadium. Just ask the Cowboys in the divisional round. Ask the Seahawks in the wild card this past year. Ask any team that has come into the San Francisco 49ers Levi's Stadium. 49er fans make other teams feel them. Now, they have made upgrades, things like that, and I'm sure people want to see more. They want to see more out of this stadium, which I can also understand. But I will say I am happy to report that the vibes at Levi's Stadium have been fantastic. We'll see what these upgrades are. I've heard upgrading the suites and more additional seats and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see what these upgrades are. But it's gonna be a main point of emphasis for fans. Another interesting thing is that the league has approved players to wear the number 0. So the first player that comes to mind when potentially wearing the players or the number 0 is Amador Lenore. Amador Lenore he wore number 0 at the University of Oregon in his final year. He wore a couple numbers. He wore 15, 6, and 0 during his time. But I'm not going to lie. The 0 looks kind of clean. I, l- I don't, I'll be honest. I don't love the Amador Lenore in number 38. I feel like 38, I think of Deshaun Goldson. So I look at 38 as a safety number. Like if the 49ers go out and get a dope safety, I wouldn't mind seeing that safety rocking 38. But when I look at Amador Lenore, uh, I wouldn't be opposed at all to him switching to number 0. I think he'd look pretty fire. Um, I think he'd look pretty fire. He also posted it to his story, bunch of fire emojis. So maybe we do see Diamador switch to 0. But then Deebo Samuel threw his hat into the ring on the conversation. He says, all right, now NFL, LOL, approving number 0, laughing emoji, locked lips. So then this was interpreted as Deebo Samuel wanting to switch to number 0. But he then responded and he's like, I don't want number 0. He's like, the number that I want is number 1. And but he goes on to say the NFL wants way too much money for him to switch to number 1. And oh, hold on. Something came through. Let me double check. Okay, never mind. And he says the NFL is going to just charge him way too much money. But if you don't remember, Deebo Samuel was number 1 at the University of South Carolina. And so I get why they're going to make him pay money because they probably have a ton of number 19 Deebo Samuel jerseys already made. He probably has one of the more popular jerseys in the NFL. The branding across the league, it would have an impact to the league's bottom line. So that's why they make him pay. So I think lower level players, like let's say a Jimmy Ward, I don't think Jimmy Ward had to really pay anything to switch from 20 to 1 because let's face it, Jimmy Ward isn't a household name across the league. He's not a top jersey sales guy. Deebo is a premier player in this league. They sell a lot of his jerseys. So, hey. But he was hinting at the switch to jersey number 1 when they allowed certain players to be able to switch to single digits. So he was flirting with the idea, but again, I think ultimately he decided not to because it's too much. His brand is 19 problems, can't change that. I mean, his original brand was Uno Captain. That was his original was Uno Captain. I remember that from back when I was scouting Deebo out of South Carolina. So hey, it could happen. It could happen. But if they're gonna make him pay, I doubt it. I doubt they're gonna do it. So that's just some of the stuff that had popped up today. But let's talk about the quarterback stuff because the original question that I had posed was, do the San Francisco 49ers have a quarterback problem? I am first, before I get long-winded and start going on a typical Brad rant, I want to ask you guys, do you think the San Francisco 49ers have a quarterback problem? Let me know in the chat. Again, you know how we do. We like to pull the chat, see what the chat's vibing off of. I'm going to tell you my take regardless, but we're going to talk about it. Do you think this Jason, do you think the 49ers have a quarterback problem? Tell me how you really feel. But so far, it's not it's not it's not all in agreement. Some are saying yes, some are saying no. So let's just take a look. Let's go down the list. You want to get up on the screen? Drop your answer in the comments below. Jason says no, and then goes to emphasize it even one step further. Nope. Yes. Yes, there's a quarterback problem. Pocket says no. Wayne says yes. Brock Purdy says yes. Nice. I like your logo there. Good profile picture. Matches matches your name, unfortunately. Oh goodness. No spells, hell no. Nah, Purdy's the GOAT. Not yet. Yes, yes. The Niners have a good quarterback problem. Yes. Other teams would be lucky to have this same problem. Yes, but it's a good problem. It's a good problem. Good problem. Yeah, putting all your eggs in the Brock basket is a mistake. Did they do that? Have they done that? I don't think they have. And we'll talk about that a little bit further. But no. So we kind of see where oh man, you're not the only one that's tired, my guy. We've been trying to figure out what the 49ers quarterback situation has been for 2017. It's been since 2017 that we've been trying to figure out what the quarterback situation is with the San Francisco 49ers moving forward. So this is what the 49ers, again, we heard from John Lynch yesterday. John Lynch told us that Brock Purdy is the leader in the clubhouse to be quarterback one. Basically, if they were to take snaps today, Brock Purdy was going to be quarterback one. Okay, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. I think that is that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I know some people had some problems with it, but I think when you really look at the body of work, who was last up, and what Brock did last year, to me, it makes sense to why he would be quarterback one. I think some people had a problem with the fact that John Lynch said that while he's hurt, and we don't really know what the timeline looks like for his return, when he's going to return. We haven't got into OTAs. We haven't got into training camp yet. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're putting the cart before the horse. Can't name Brock Purdy's QB1 yet. We don't even know if he can throw. Like I think there are some genuine concerns. Can Brock Purdy even throw the football again? What's it going to look like? We don't know. So I think there's a range of emotions and thought processes that has come from the conversation so far. And we're going to continue to look and see and try to decipher, is this a problem or is this a good problem? So we hear from Kyle Shanahan today. right? All yesterday we were talking about, okay, Brock Purdy quarterback 1, right? Brock Purdy's quarterback 1. They said it, that's the signal that we need. We saw the bat signal. The 49ers put up the bat signal, and it was the number 13. Brock Purdy, quarterback 1, right? Okay. So we got that. And smash that like button if you haven't already. Let's cook. Then we have Kyle Shanahan speak to the media today. And of course, Kyle Shanahan is going to see what John Lynch talked about. Kyle Shanahan is also going to be aware of the questions he's going to be asked. So Kyle Shanahan has an opportunity to provide additional clarity. I think I've seen it being discussed as, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they're not on the same page. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. It maybe if their messaging sounds a little bit different or maybe not ultra succinct, I don't believe that necessarily means they're not on the same page. I think they're on the same page. I think Kyle Shanahan basically heard John Lynch say, "Oh, we expect him to be ready for Brock Purdy. That is, we expect Brock Purdy to be ready for training camp." And Kyle Shanahan, from everything that I've learned about Kyle, is he'd rather set the expectation low than high, if that makes sense. Like he'd rather set you up for disappointment than kind of set you up for excitement because I think he wants to set the bar lower, and then if they are able to, hit that mark that they ultimately want to do, which probably is training camp, then that's going to feel like a W. That's like, oh yeah, we beat the timeline. We beat the initial. So I don't necessarily look at John Lynch saying the timeline's training camp for Brock Purdy, and then Kyle Shanahan basically coming out today and saying, well, it's we're looking at week 1 through week 4. That's the time that we are looking for Brock Purdy to return. And after watching and listening to Kyle Shanahan talk about this just feels like Kyle setting the expectation and kind of countering the expectation that was kind of put out there by John Lynch. That's all I think this was. I don't think it has anything to do. I think both things can be true. I think they are looking to try to get Brock Purdy back at training camp, but I also believe there's another range of outcomes where Brock Purdy isn't ready by training camp, isn't ready by week 1, and so Kyle Shanahan is providing the not so optimistic timeline for Brock Purdy. That is my take on they're not on the same page. I think they're both on the same page. Kyle Shanahan just provided a little bit more in-depth idea of the timeline and kicked it out to be like, listen, I don't want you guys to come down Brock's road. I don't want you to come down our road if he's not ready for training camp, because there is a huge possibility that he's not. So if Brock Purdy's not ready for training camp, which there's a very good likelihood that he's not, let me set the record straight. Let's put the timetable at week 1 to week 4. Sometime within there, maybe we'll see Brock Purdy. And so I think that's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's fair because, again, we all got excited. Training camp. Brock Purdy's going to be ready for training camp. We thought it was going to be 6 weeks, with 6 months. This is all this is. It's all this is. Setting expectation for the fan base. And that's all it have you? JC says, been saying that and got cooked on Twitter. Why? What are you getting cooked for? I haven't been like scrolling Twitter today. So that's funny that you've been getting cooked for the thing that I'm saying. I don't think this is these two guys not being on the same page. I think if you look at any head coach and general manager duo in the league, I feel like out of anyone, these guys are at the top of being on the same page. I mean, the things that we always hear about these guys are their communication. And again, not everything is going to go perfect. Sometimes you're going to have to walk something back or you're going to have to expand on something. Doesn't mean there's a lapse in communication, you know what I'm saying? Or like they're not on the same. Multiple things can be true. Of course, there's nuance, right? There's nuance involved in these conversations, and that's okay. Not everything has to be cut or dry. There can be nuance and gray area. I really do believe these two guys are like this. I have my critiques of Kyle. I've had my critiques of Kyle in the past. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, I do think Kyle is a good coach. And when it comes to his communication, he is very straightforward. And more often than not, he is going to tell you. So ultimately, I believe that little disconnect, quote unquote disconnect, is more of them setting an expectation. Just setting the expectation. Don't expect Brock Purdy by training camp. Expect Brock Purdy by week 1 through 4. And that changes the aiming point for the fan base and their expectations of what the quarterback return should look like. That's how I am perceiving this to be. So, as we heard, Kyle Shanahan kind of clarified the timeline for Brock Purdy's return, weeks 1 through 4. I have no problems with this. Makes sense. And the San Francisco 49ers could absolutely maybe get Brock Purdy at some point in training camp. We'll find out. Maybe they get him back during preseason. I don't know. We'll see. But again, I think more is basically on the same kind of page and kind of trajectory that we have been on up until this point. And because Brock Purdy potentially won't be ready between weeks 1 through 4, we also got to hear Kyle Shanahan speak more about Trey Lance and like what the deal's going on with Trey Lance. And obviously, the conversations heading into this offseason are dramatically different than last season. Last season, it was Trey Lance is quarterback 1. There's no ifs, ands, buts, candies, or nuts. Trey Lance QB1 locked and loaded. Marketing teams on board, social teams on board, coaching staff on board, players on board. Trey Lance quarterback 1. That was the messaging out of the entire organization, player side and business side. It was all Trey Lance. Now, obviously, that has changed, and it is clear that has changed because of how they're talking about it. Just for example, Kyle Shanahan said today that Trey Lance has an opportunity to regain quarterback 1 status. He has the opportunity to do it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean that Trey Lance is automatically slotting back into QB1. He will have to earn quarterback 1. And again, if you've listened to George Kittle's comments, if you've listened to any of the other players' comments so far, I think that's kind of how football works. Brock Purdy won 8 games, clearly won over the locker room, won over the franchise internally, and they feel really comfortable. I mean, all the conversations that we're hearing from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are, we feel really comfortable with Brock, even amidst his UCL surgery and UCL repair. Even amidst a like really kind of terrifying elbow injury, they're still like, yeah, we are good on Brock. Like we know what Brock is. We are confident with who he is, and we think he can be quarterback one. So again, that all comes back to Trey Lance. Trey Lance, what do we always talk about with Trey Lance? Trey Lance just needs reps. He needs more time. He needs more opportunities. And again, he's gotten the opportunities, but unfortunately has dealt with multiple injuries. Whether you go back to his rookie year, getting the finger issue against the Raiders in the third preseason game, go to week 5 against Arizona and the knee sprain. And then he steps in at the end of the year against the Texans and helps the San Francisco 49ers advance into the playoffs in a must-win game. And then after that, it's okay, let's get ready. Let's get Trey ready. He'll be the starter. Jimmy comes back as a backup, and Trey Lance will be quarterback one. But then Trey Lance gets hurt in the first half of the second game against the Seahawks. And so there's just been no consistent path forward. Every time we've thought we've gotten Trey Lance on the consistent path, it just has been derailed by something. And that something so far has been injuries. So I understand. Even Trey talked about this during the Super Bowl week. Even Trey said, he's like, I don't want to be handed the job. Brock, we all saw what Brock did. What Brock did was amazing. And he is deserving of being the guy who has earned that job. And it's up to me to compete for it. And I respect that from Trey. I respect that mindset, even though he's had a really difficult career, all things considered. He's had a pretty difficult career. He's had one of the more like tumultuous first couple years of any young quarterback with tons of potential that I have seen, maybe in my time covering the the league in general. So it's a hard spot for Trey. This isn't something that, again, I'm having these conversations like with my son now. He is 10 years old. We got him in the flag football again, squirrel story. And again, the only thing that I'm trying to emphasize, and I'm emphasizing it to my son now, is like, these coaches don't owe you anything. Like, you're on a team, there's probably like 20 kids on your team. They don't owe you to be heavily used as a player. Like, and I'm trying to get him to transition from like the kind of the other leagues that he's played in that have been more kind of, hey, show up and we're going to get you in no matter what kind of a situation, to like, you got to go out here and you got to take this spot. If you want to play, you got to go out and compete. You got to take that playing time. It's not going to be given to you. And so, like, what I'm trying to say is, and I'm not trying to correlate like what I'm telling my son to like what Trey needs to do. That's not what I'm doing. All I'm saying is, like, I'm teaching my son now, who is someone who does want to play football. Maybe we'll see how far it goes, but I'm teaching him now that it's like, you got to take what you want. If on the football field, it really doesn't matter. You got to go out and you got to take it. You got to earn it. And so that's kind of like where Trey's at. He's got to go out. He's got to take this spot. No one's giving it to him. No one is going, and as that's been made abundantly clear. But I think that is also, there's beauty in that opportunity, is that Trey does actually have an opportunity to take this spot. So it's up to him to go out here, put his best foot forward, and say, hey, Brock, love you, my boy. We're good. Hey, Sam, nice to meet you. Love the ginger hair. All looks great, but we're competing. I'm coming for this job. I'm going to help you. You help me. But at the end of the day, when we get in between those white lines, we are competing. And I'm going to take this job. It doesn't have to be any kind of negativity behind that. But the fact that he has that opportunity, I think, is a good situation for Trey. Now, it's not the ideal situation, right? I think the ideal situation is you give him the time, you allow him to kind of fit into this role. But again, I don't believe that's how football should be for my 10-year-old. So I can't keep that same energy with my 10-year-old and have a different energy for Trey Lance. My energy is the same with my 10-year-old to Trey Lance. Go win the job. No one is going to hand you anything. Go take it. We know Trey works. We know Trey's a good kid. We know Trey has a great head on his shoulders. Go take it. Go. No one cares. It's a dog eat dog world, especially in the NFL. Go take it. And I think that's a good problem. I think that's a fantastic problem. I think with Brock Purdy sidelined and the fact that we also heard that Kyle Shanahan said both Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are going to be splitting first team reps, meaning Trey isn't even being given the second QB job, let alone the first, right? He's not getting the first quarterback job. He's not even being given the second. They're saying, listen, we brought Sam Darnold in here to potentially beat both Brock and Trey. That's how highly we listen, guys. Like, if you don't know this, these Shanahans historically have loved themselves some Sam Darnold. Like, going back pre-draft, post-draft, Kyle has definitely attempted to potentially trade for Sam Darnold. Like, there was heavy rumors in 2021 when the 49ers were clearly done with Jimmy Garoppolo that instead of trading up to number 3, the other option was to trade for Sam Darnold. So Kyle has been chomping at the bit to get his hands on Sam Darnold, and he got him. And he got him for cheap. And his potential quarterback 1 is on the shelf, and his quarterback 2 is unproven. And now he has this guy that has the tools. Again, Sam Darnold's issue is not physical tools. You can match up Sam Darnold's physical tools with some of the better quarterbacks in this league. You can. That's all. I've always said that about him. And I'm someone who called Sam a bust coming out of USC. I didn't think Sam had the processing ability, which again, look at Brock Purdy. Why is Brock Purdy so successful with such limited tools? Because he's an elite processor. He's an elite football player from a mental standpoint. And at the quarterback position, you can mitigate physical limitations because you have mental processing prowess. So that's where my disconnect with Sam Darnold has always been. But Sam Darnold, to his credit, hasn't had great coaching. He hasn't had great environments or opportunities to really flourish. So maybe this is it. Zero pressure. He's with a coach that believes in him, and you have now the opportunity to combine the like you don't have to teach him how to throw. You don't have to reteach Sam Darnold throwing mechanics like you did Trey Lance when he came into the league. Like Sam's all good there. It's just building confidence with Sam. That's it. Building the confidence and believing in what you see, believing in your progressions, believing in your timing. That's all Sam needs to work on. And this couldn't be a better offense for Sam. So there is going to be a competition for quarterback 2 or quarterback 1 or quarterback 3. This is going to be, in my opinion, a phenomenal training camp. I'm going to get my popcorn ready because I think everything's on the table. and they are going to compete. And again, I started this out as, is this a problem? The name of this live is, do the 49ers have a quarterback problem? They have a good quarterback problem. I really believe that. Do they have a problem in a sense? Yes, they don't know who their quarterback is. That is kind of a problem. Like, it's year what, 6 or going into year 7? I don't know. I can't math. But it's been multiple years, and the San Francisco 49ers still don't have a legitimate, certified, locked in quarterback one. Is that a problem? Yeah, I would say that could be a problem. But with how we're quantifying and looking at the quarterback position right now, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, and a healing Brock Purdy all competing, I think that's a good problem. And I think ultimately, like I've discussed, if you have the mentality that, all right, the opportunity's there, I just got to take it. Who's going to take it? Is it going to be Trey? Is it going to be Sam? Or is Brock going to hold it down? I think that whole ecosystem in a sport that is football, that is based on competition, that's a good problem to have. At the quarterback position, all these guys are young. None of these guys are old. Sam Darnold's the oldest, and he's 25. None of these guys are old. They still have a lot of growing to do. Trey Lance would be like, he'd probably be younger than like 80% of the NFL draft, the quarterbacks coming into this class. Like, Brock Purdy is older than Trey Lance. So, like, these guys still have growing to do. There's still growth and potential to be realized in all three of these quarterbacks. And now you're going to have all three of these guys, honestly, on somewhat level of a playing field. And they're going to have the opportunity to go out here and compete. And I couldn't ask for anything better. That's what I wanted from Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo year one. I don't know if we totally got it. Again, we were told all offseason in that training camp, oh, it's not a competition. It's Jimmy G's quarterback one, which I understand from a messaging expectation standpoint. But I couldn't tell if it was a real competition. So I just want to see it become a competition ultimately at the end. And that's how we determine who's going to be quarterback one for the San Francisco 49ers. Gammon Brown, appreciate the super chat. You got this one in a while ago. I was ranting. So I apologize for not getting it to it sooner, but I was in the zone. Gammon says, is there a point where the 49ers brass honestly is harmful to current players and disruptive to future deals due to us being an open book? I mean, there hasn't been anything that I have seen that would indicate that anything that they're doing right now is disruptive. I would look at the San Francisco 49ers outside of the sales tax issue. Like, I think California state tax is a huge issue for a lot of free agents. So, like, I think you're not going to be a huge free agent attraction because, one, the San Francisco 49ers aren't going to overpay. You even had Jed York say that today. He's like, we are never going to be big spenders in free agency. It's not their philosophy. Their philosophy is to build through the draft, build homegrown talent, and supplement with free agency, as we've seen Charvarius Ward, uh, Javon Hargrave, and how they've done it in years past. They're not building their whole team off of free agency. So I honestly don't think, I mean, obviously we've had some issues getting players signed, getting Kittle signed, getting Defoe signed, getting Deebo signed. Are we approaching an issue with uh Brandon Ayuk? I don't know. But to be perfectly honest, I without, of course, having legitimate inside knowledge of the day in, day out, because I think that's how you would have to really be able to answer this question is you'd have to really know like the intricacies of everything that like I feel like you got to be a front office person to be able to understand like what's actually happening behind the scenes to be able to truly decipher if it is a problem. Um, and again, but my assumption, which is that's what it is because I am not behind the scenes, is that it's not with everyone. I mean, not every relationship is perfect. There's always going to be issues. Uh, but I think again, in an industry that is defined by turnover, the fact that these guys are very much transparent, I think helps their case. Um, and that's all you've heard from these veteran players. They are very thankful for the transparency. There's no guessing, there's no doubt. They know where they stand, and that allows them to actually improve and get better because they're not worried about, hey, where am I in this organization? Where do I fit? They know where they fit. The 49ers tell them where they fit, and it's up to them to get in or fit. You know what I mean? Like it's up to them to r- reach the level of expectation that's placed on them. So I do think it's not that big of a problem. But again, to really be able to answer that question, I think you need to talk to someone who's in the day to day weeds of that type of stuff. Tia says, does Trey really have a chance? It comes off from Kyle and Lynch that he doesn't. I would expect that Trey Lance has a legitimate chance because at the end of the day, if Trey Lance is balling out and outperforming Sam Darnold, I don't believe Kyle Shanahan and or John Lynch are going to be like, listen, we're going to trade you, or like, we're no, this isn't working for us. Like, I still think there are some opportunities for Trey Lance to truly regain that spot, but again, it's on Trey Lance, and that's a lot to ask. It's a lot of pressure. I don't want to minimize what Trey Lance is going through. Like I can't imagine if I'm being perfectly honest, like the decisions and the things that I was doing at Trey Lance's age, like I couldn't have this weight of the world on me. I would crumble. Like, so what we're asking Trey isn't easy. It's not something that even we can like quantify because there's so much pressure, so much expectation, so much that goes into this that, yes, I think there is a true opportunity, but also on top of that opportunity is layered a lot of pressure. So if Trey can push through that and push all the noise out and just get back to playing football, just like the kids back at recess, just kind of lock into that. Like, I'm playing a game, you're supposed to be having fun and compete. I think that will be his best path forward for success. Um, I just think, I do think there's a sense of doubt that he'll be able to reach that. Like, that's just my reading of the organization. It just feels like there is a little bit of doubt that he can be that guy just because they haven't seen it yet. Um, but I also don't want, I don't want it to be a situation where, the San Francisco 49ers traded what they traded. They don't really, he doesn't Trey doesn't really get the shot. Let's say he'll be on another team eventually, and then he goes out and performs. Like I think that is a possibility. I don't want it to be a possibility. I would much rather prefer Trey perform for the San Francisco 49ers than another team. Um, but Yeah, I would agree with Peyton here. That it feels like there's a lot of hedging. Last year, bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo, that felt like hedging, and it actually worked to their benefit. So, to their credit, it has worked. So, I don't have too many issues with the 49ers making sure they had all options available. And they aren't putting I don't think the 49ers are putting someone asked earlier in the beginning of the show, like, is there a concern that the 49ers are putting all their eggs into Brock's basket? I don't think they are. I think when you bring in Sam Darnold and you pay Sam Darnold and you structure his contract the way it is, there's definitely eggs in Sam Darnold's basket. Also with Trey Lance, there are still some eggs in that basket. I would say right now, Brock probably is holding the majority of those eggs. But as we keep talking about, it's up to Sam, it's up to Trey to go steal those eggs. I want all the eggs in my basket. And, you know, and through fair competition, right? But it's up to these guys. And if they're going to give them the opportunity, which I really do hope they do, um, I really think that will be the best case for the San Francisco 49ers moving forward in regards to the quarterback situation, competition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Shout out Chili, running the best Discord uh, in the planet. Shout out Chili. He says, if we trade Trey, what would we get in return? The reason why I don't necessarily love the idea of trading Trey is because it would be you are accepting the ultimate L. Because unless a team like Atlanta, or I mean, there's like two or three quarterback needy teams left. We already know the Texans are going to be getting a quarterback in the top. We know that the Panthers are going to be getting a quarterback. Indy has an opportunity to be getting one of these quarterbacks. We know that like there are going to be at minimum three quarterback needy teams that take care of that problem right away. So I don't think we're gonna find someone who's going to overpay for Trey Lance. And when we say overpay, I would say an overpay right now. And again, this is just like has nothing to do with like Trey. It's just how I would perceive value at this point. When you look at the number former 3 overall pick, he's played in 4 games, has had a difficult time staying healthy and seeing the field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Value right now is probably at an all-time low. So for them to trade him right now, that is the sign that they're like throwing in the towel. Like we're done with this project. We're moving forward. But if they're allowing him the opportunity to compete, that's why I still think that shows a sign of belief. And also to a sign that hey, we invested a lot in this kid and we want to see our investment ultimately pan out. So but if we're talking trade compensation, I would be shocked if the 49ers netted a singular first. Maybe you could still get like a second rounder, or you can, maybe grab another first round guy that maybe hasn't met the expectations with with that particular franchise, and they do a little swap, kind of like the San Francisco 49ers swapped AJ Jenkins with what's his name from the Kansas City Chiefs. Both first round wide receivers that absolutely did not meet expectations. They're just like, hey, let's try a change of scenery. You take this guy, I'll take that guy. Okay, neither one of these guys are any good. All right, it's just a wash. Doesn't really affect much. But the reason why I don't like the idea of trading Trey from a business economic standpoint is you're probably getting the worst possible value. Like if there was an opportunity to get value, I would be more open to it because again, you have to put your GM cap on. Your GM cap, you're constantly trying to find value. And the 49ers have done a phenomenal job of doing that, especially in the later rounds and or flipping guys that they've gone undrafted. Like they turned Breida, I think, into a 5th round pick, undrafted free agent running back. They turned what's his name? Wilson, undrafted free agent running back, into a 5th round draft pick via trade. Like they're trying to they're trying to get the return on investment. So the biggest issue with Trey being traded is you're taking a big hit on your return on investment. And that's what makes it difficult. Shout out to everyone sending super chats. Let me get some more in here. Obviously, this conversation is at the forefront of a lot of our minds. John Wayne, the famous cowboy, says Trey needs competition to sharpen his skills. Do not worry about Trey Lance. Um, you know, I I heard from someone, who is pretty close with Trey. And whatever, this isn't a source. This isn't anything like that or anything like none of that. But this particular person feels really confident in what Trey is going to do this year, or at least in regards to how he's developing behind the scenes. So we'll see. Again, he's been through a lot. He could be completely like just hardened to the pressure, hardened to the expectation because it's been sitting on his shoulders for 2 years. And he's like, well, look at where I'm at now. We'll see. We'll see how this continues to progress and, build some confidence and stuff like that. So I'm all for competition. I'm all for competition. Um, I'm not particularly worried about Trey Lance because, again, I feel like the 49ers have a good problem on their hands. They have a good quarterback room right now. Even though there's a lot of questions and unproven situations, they still have a pretty darn good quarterback room as it stands right now. Scott Hill, appreciate the $10 super chat, my guy. He says, hey, Brad, what do we do if Trey balls out? What about Brock? Well, that's the other beauty of it. You're paying Brock Purdy virtually nothing. He was the last pick in the NFL draft. Brock Purdy has roommates. Okay? He's got 2 roommates. Like Brock Purdy, the 49ers have so much flexibility with Brock Purdy because he's under team control for 3 more years at a extremely cost-effective figure. So if Trey balls out, then you have a phenomenal backup in Brock Purdy. Vice versa. If Brock Purdy continues to ball out, you have a pretty good backup plan in Trey Lance. So I don't think it's one way or the other. Now, Trey is getting there. I think if Trey is going to be traded at one point, this to me is a make or break year for Trey. Because, and I'll tell you why it's a make or break year for Trey, because of where he's getting in his contract. And it's kind of talking about this conversation, like this question that was raised by Scott. And I know it wasn't about Trey, it was more about Brock, but the same logic applies to Trey in this scenario. One of the reasons why Trey is really valuable is because he's on a rookie pay scale. Like he is cost controlled right now. And what we've seen from a lot of teams that have had success, hey, just look up north, look at the Seattle Seahawks and what the Seattle Seahawks did with a rookie Russell Wilson and the way they were able to build the Legion of Boom and They had a pretty solid offensive line, really good defensive line. They had a good team, good linebackers. They had a really good team because they were paying Russell Wilson next to nothing in regards to the rookie pay scale, and he's also a former third-round draft pick. But the same logic applies with Trey. Is they can afford to keep Trey, even at I think it's like an $8 million cap hit, somewhere around there. But eventually, that clock is going to run out, and that's why I feel like this. That's why I feel like this year is huge for Trey because after this year, that's 3 years in the hopper. You've got 1 year left on your rookie deal, and then you have one team option where they can pick up the 5th year option. So if you're going to trade Trey, it could happen mid year, it could happen at the end of the year, because that's where I think another team could find that value and say, well, listen, we can get Trey, try him out on the last year of his rookie deal. You're not having to pay him a whole lot. And then we have the option to pick up the 5th year. So then you still have 2 years of team control. Obviously, you pick up the 5th year, the price goes way up, but you still have that control. So that's why I think this year is a big year. I think Trey has to show something. I think Trey has to get out on the field. And I think the 49ers need to be proven that, oh, wow, we got a quarterback in Brock. Oh, we got a quarterback in Sam. And we got a quarterback in Trey. Then that's where I think the trade conversations come from. Of like, we got 3 guys. We got 3 guys that we would put our faith in to go out there and lead our team. And listen, that's just not feasible. And, so if that's the case, and we like Sam enough to extend Sam after this year, then Trey could become an eventual piece to move, I would say, because of where he is in his kind of contractual timeline. So, but good question, Scott. And also thank you for the super chat. And we got a couple more super chats. Shout out to everyone sending super chats. Appreciate you guys. And smash that like button if you haven't already. The hope is that we're not going to be talking about the quarterback all off season. Of course we are, especially after the last 2 days. And we've gotten some actual hearing from the team and all that type of stuff. But I would say hopefully after the next week or two, things will kind of level out until OTAs. And then we'll have another kind of ramp up of quarterback talk around OTAs because we're going to see how the reps are structured. And we'll try to evaluate OTAs as best we can. And who's leading, who's pushing at the most at OTA. We'll figure it out. But I know the quarterback talk isn't for everyone because we've just been talking about it for years at this point. It can be tiresome for some, so I definitely understand. Tia, thank you again for the super chat. Another one, appreciate you. If Kyle and Lynch knew Lance was a project, why draft them in the first place? You could have just taken Justin Fields. I mean, so I'm a little bit biased, right? Because I loved Justin Fields. And Chili, you watch your mouth when you talk about, as Jason Aponte and I would call him, our prince. I love Justin Fields, man. I definitely think Justin Fields is still a work in progress. I think where Justin Fields needs to work the most is connecting the brain to the talent, connecting the processing to the talent. The talent is through the roof with Justin Fields. I think that's abundantly clear. I think Justin Fields could be one of the guys in the NFL, but I do think it's going to take some time. And we'll see. He had Nagy. That didn't work out very well. Nagy, no weapons. And now he's got what seems to be a good support system and structure around him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But like, if you guys remember, I mean, the whole hashtag Fields at 3, like I was all in on Justin Fields being the San Francisco 49ers quarterback. All in. I liked Trey, but I didn't have the opportunity to scout Trey like I scouted Justin. If you guys remember that season, Trey didn't play, and I watched Justin Fields week in, week out go through a lot of adversity. And one of the reasons why I was so high on Justin was because I know how much adversity is in the NFL. Look at what Trey's going through. Look at how much adversity Trey's gone through. And one of the things with people, you don't always know how people respond to adversity. Everyone could be the best versions of themselves when everything's going well. It's when adversity strikes that you know. I think Damon Bruce, 95.7, he would always end his radio show with football doesn't build character, it reveals it. You know what I mean? Like you are kind of who you are, and when you get put into those adverse situations, it reveals who like you are at your core. And the thing with Justin was like this dude was getting hated on by the entire national media. Everyone was calling him a bust, and he was getting hurt. He was carrying Ohio State on his back, and the dude would just keep going. Get up, get knocked down 9 times, stand up 10 times. Like, and that was a trait that I admired about Justin Fields. Was like, this dude is not going to quit. Like, it doesn't matter how much the national media craps on his name. Doesn't matter this, doesn't matter playing through injury. Justin Fields was a machine. And I was like, all right, I'm vibing with that. I like Fields a lot. So I'm still a big Fields fan. And I hope he finds that success in this league. I do think he's capable of finding success in this league, and I still believe he needs some time. I don't think he's there yet. I think I maybe didn't understand truly like his limitations as a processor, because again, that's hard to decipher sometimes. But I think he's had trouble with that. But once he makes that connection and can get the processing in line with his talent level, Justin could be crazy, man. Could be absolutely crazy. And, why did the 49ers draft Trey Lance if he was such a project? I think that, if Trey Lance doesn't work out with the San Francisco 49ers, and again, the book hasn't been written yet. There's still time. But as it stands right now, if Trey doesn't work out, I think that's a really reasonable question. I think that's a very reasonable question to ask, because you saw it right out of OTAs. Like, so as you guys know, like I love scouting. So when we the 49ers moved up to 3, I was all over these quarterbacks. I was watching. It's all I scouted. That's all I was like, all right, we're taking a quarterback at 3. So I'm going to watch everything that I can. I'm going to nitpick everything that I can, that I have access to, what I could see, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and I've been following Quincy Avery for years. So I would always see Trey pop up on Quincy Avery. Um, I followed Trey's quarterback coach, who I actually ran into at the combine and got to speak to a little bit about Trey as well, Sean McAvoy. I've been following these guys for years. So I already know what they're about. And so when Trey entered their program, I would always watch the videos that they posted. You're always watching mechanics, and kind of what Trey's mechanics were. And Trey always had a rhythm step. He has this rhythm bounce in his step. You go back to the pre-draft process. I liked it, But clearly, I understand why the 49ers don't like it. You go back and you watch Purdy. Purdy has got no rhythm step. He is flat footed and can just balls out. And I understand it. It makes sense why that's what you would want out of a quarterback, because Trey, to me, is a rhythmic thrower. So he would hit his back foot, his plant foot, and his hitch, and he would kind of bounce into his set and then throw. And so it was a wasted motion. And so when he went into OTAs, they eradicated that. They like I have a video of the first Trey going into OTAs with the 49ers and Trey coming out of OTAs, and they eradicated the rhythm hop. But as it's progressed, they've allowed it. They've just really tried to streamline it, because I think it is a part of his motion. He is kind of like this rhythm thrower. And they were just trying to like get him like Purdy, where Purdy can just stand there and just kind of rip it. I really think Trey has this motion to him. But the point being is they knew likely ahead of time that they were going to have to retool the mechanics. They had a plan for his mechanics, how they wanted to fix it, and how they wanted it, where they wanted it to go. So that was, again, that's a project. That's, having to retool quarterbacks mechanics that dramatically is quite the task. Um, so why did they take a project in the first place? I don't know, because since we've had some time to really think about it, uh, I've come to believe that maybe the San Francisco 49ers wasn't the best spot for Trey Lance. You heard a lot pre-draft. The 49ers are the best landing spot for a quarterback. And I would say so. I would say for a pro-ready quarterback, like for a quarterback who could step in right away. Yes, that's the best spot. But what I think we've come to learn about Trey Lance is he necessarily wasn't ready to step in, right? At least by Kyle standards. Um, Again, I can only speak in generalities because I don't know at the end of the day. But by Kyle standards, wasn't ready um, to just take on that role. I thought he was ready. I thought you had to kind of give him that opportunity so he could weather the storm of his rookie season and learn on the job. Like you draft a 21-year-old, you draft a 20-year-old, however young he was, you kind of got to let him learn a little bit on the job. And maybe there was a thought process of, well, if we don't have to put him out there so early, maybe we don't. So I think there's two thought processes in regards to developing quarterbacks. But I did feel like Trey he needed the reps. He kind of needed that growth in real time, experience the bumps and bruises in real time, and learn from them week to week and continue to develop. But they kept Jimmy, and of course, that really stopped Trey from getting in. But I think is also compounded with the injuries that were suffered. But again, shout out to everyone sending the super chats. You got some good questions today. I appreciate it. All right. What's good 49ers throwback? He says, are you surprised what Kyle Shanahan said today? No, I'm not surprised at all. I went back, I listened to it. Sometimes when you're just ingesting quotes on Twitter, you lose some of the context. So I wanted to make sure that I went back and I listened to it, and all of it was reasonable. It all made sense to me. I really had no issues with anything that he said. I understand kind of their current logic right now. I understand their thought process around in the quarterback position. I know there's heavy nuance to it because of the expectations that Trey has, the expectations that Brock has, and now the new expectations of Sam Darnold. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I get it. Like, I get kind of from an outside perspective, I can rationalize their perspective. So I'm honestly not surprised by anything that Kyle said today. For me, it was more like par for the course. Like, yeah, that makes sense. like Kyle kind of walking back Purdy's like timeline a little bit. To me, that made sense. I talked about that earlier. Kyle saying that Sam and Trey are going to split reps at quarterback one. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think a lot of people were kind of taken back by that, but that makes a ton of sense to me. You have two quarterbacks right now that aren't Brock, and I think they're going to give Sam Darnold an opportunity. They're going to give him first team reps. They're going to see what he has. It's a competition. So if it's a true competition, yeah, you're going to split reps. So I'm not concerned by that. Kyle said Trey has the opportunity to gain QB1, regain quarterback one. Makes sense. I like it. I like that he said it. I like that he openly said he has the opportunity to win it back. Doesn't mean he has it now, but he has the opportunity to get it back, and he expanded on that and kind of talked about the evolution of that. I had no problems with that. So honestly, like if you listen, I feel like for me, I listened to everything Kyle said. I had no problems. Makes perfect sense. Like it, there's not a roadmap for these types of situations, but how they're kind of managing it, in my opinion, it makes sense. Um, I'll ask the question to you: were you guys surprised? Were you surprised by anything today? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Were you surprised by anything Kyle Shanahan said today? Uh, and maybe that's a topic we could spin off of because, again, I'm not ultra surprised by anything. But again, I know not everyone thinks like me, so we're open. We're open to feedback. Boxing fan ×4. Appreciate the super chat. Says if Brock's quarterback won, it's Super Bowl, or Kyle has to go give up too much. Wait. To give up so quick on who he chooses as star quarterback. Deep playoff runs don't cut it anymore. Okay. I think I'm seeing here. Again, my biggest ask to all of you guys is one, I love all of you, and I love that you send super chats, but my ADHD brain, which is borderline dyslexic, if one thing's off, it could spin my whole brain. But back to the super chat. Back to the super chat. If Brock's quarterback won, it's Super Bowl. Basically, I'm thinking what you're saying, Super Bowl or bust, basically. Kyle has to go give up too much to give up so quick on who he chose as his starting quarterback. Deep playoff runs don't cut it anymore. So, again, I apologize. Borderline dyslexic over here. I believe what you're saying is the leash for Kyle is short, meaning if he goes with Brock as quarterback one, your expectation for Kyle at that point is Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl is the only winning the Super Bowl is the only thing that's going to cure trading up and giving the draft capital to go get Trey. And if Trey doesn't, I think that's, feel free to clarify, by the way, if you're still in the chat. But I think that's what you're saying. Is which I don't think, me personally, I don't think that's a super fair expectation to expect a second year quarterback who's Mr. Irrelevant, coming off a UCL injury to win the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously the team is set to win the Super Bowl, so there will be Super Bowl aspirations. I will say that. But I feel like anytime the expectation is winning the Super Bowl, there's a high probability of being disappointed because it's so hard to win a Super Bowl. I mean, there are multiple teams. The Buffalo Bills have never won a Super Bowl, literally zero. 49ers managed 5. I get I get that it's been a long time. Trust me, it's been a long time. I want to see the San Francisco 49ers win a ring more than anyone. Like I'm I'm sick, you know. I need it. I need it in my life. I need a Super Bowl. With all the crap that's going on, I need a Super Bowl. But I won't necessarily hold them to that expectation. I'll hold them to the expectation of playoffs or bust. 100%. I think this is a playoff team. Like they should make the playoffs year in year out. With this roster, even with kind of a revolving door at quarterback, playoffs or bust. 100%. I would even get a little ballsy and say NFC championship or bust. Like I'm okay with that. But I really believe getting to the Super Bowl alone, let alone winning the Super Bowl, is so hard that yes, that's what I want, but ultimately I will hold them to the standards of deep playoff runs right now because I think when you get into the deep playoff runs, anything can happen. Like there's so many variables, so many things can change, so many injuries can happen. You never know, man. Like you just never know. So for me, my expectation right now of this team is playoffs or bust. Like you got to be a playoff team. If Kyle's not getting into the playoffs, of course, there's going to be a lot of criticism going his way, and rightfully so. This is a good roster. He's built a phenomenal roster. Offense, defense, even special teams, even with, you know, kind of question marks at kicker. They've done a good job of addressing all these different sides of the football. But I'm not quite ready to hold him to uh Super Bowl or bust. The Trey Lance thing, I think, is its own. He'll obviously he'll get a pass for sure. This whole organization will get a pass on trading up for Trey Lance if they win a Super Bowl, with or without Trey, within the next year or two. Right? I think we would all agree with that. I think you can let me know in the chat below. I mean, I think this is a question worth asking because I do think a lot of fans hold in their heart, like, man, how can you give up that much for someone and not give them the opportunity? Like, you should be held accountable for that. Like, you making that trade, like, you should be held accountable for trading all these assets and doing nothing with it, right? Like, I think there is a good portion of the fan base that feels that way. So, do you think that if the 49ers win the Super Bowl in the next year or two, that anything that revolving Trey Lance and the compensation given up for Trey, is that absolved? Does that go away? Do you care at all at that point? Like, if I I would believe, and of course I'll speak for myself, if the San Francisco 49ers win the Super Bowl, they could do whatever they want. they could put they could go out there and they could put a potato behind center after winning the Super Bowl, and I'll be like, "We good, man. I'm Gooch. Like, I feel great. We're Super Bowl champions." Like the Rams over here, the Rams fans are stressing, man. Rams win the Super Bowl. They bought the Super Bowl, whatever. Like I would be fine. Like all these Niner fans chirp me till whatever. We got the bowl, man. I don't care. They're not okay with it. They're not okay with that at all. They're very insecure with their fandom. For me, the San Francisco 49ers win the Super Bowl. I'm good. 6 rings. Finally, we get our 6 rings. We're cooking. I'm good. I could chill because it has been a journey to try to get this championship. And you guys know, you've been there, especially if you were there. And I'll say this: like, if you were a fan pre Harbaugh, I have, I respect all these guys, fans, and some of these, some guys are just young. They don't then have the opportunity to be fans like that. So again, it's not a detriment or anything like that. But like, if you were a fan and like an older fan, and you were a fan pre Harbaugh, like you were a fan in that window of like 95 to 2000 and like 10. If you were a diehard in that window, I have so much respect for you as a fan because those were hard years. The expectation of the Super Bowl dynasty in the background, but being god awful, like just Browns level terrible. Like I got a lot of respect for those types of fans, man, because they're the real one. Like they know what it takes. They're like, I'm calloused. I've been through the mud. Like I've been here. I've done it. This ain't new. Like I remember when the 49ers fired Harbaugh, we got a lot of bandwagon fans, right? We got so many bandwagon fans. Quote, and some of you guys who may have become fans during the Harbaugh era, look, 10 years later, still rocking with us. So you're not bandwagon fans, but I'm just saying, like, when the 49ers got good, a whole new wave of fans hopped on, which was great. But like it created this like when we are the best and we should be the best. And of course, that's what the expectation is. But I was also like, man, I remember when we sucked. Like, yeah, this sucks. And going through the Chip Kelly era sucked. But I was like, man, I remember Mike Nolan. I remember the end of the Mariucci days. Like, I was like, the Erickson days. I was like, oh God, the ball, like, oh, I remember. So I don't know. I think those fans are built a little different because we've experienced some stuff. Not saying that we're better or whatever. It's a different level of experiencing this particular team that has been at the highest of mountaintops and the lowest of lows. I'm talking about low, 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 low. So bad. So bad. Uh, I think this is LLC. Says so. No one else thinks Purdy could be Jimmy 2.0. I think it's something that's valid. I think it's something that's valid. I think it's something that we have to be cautious of. Because yes, the and I understand the comparisons because what did Jimmy do? Now Jimmy wasn't a rookie, right? He wasn't a rookie. He'd been in the league for 4 years. The 49ers trade a second round draft pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo comes over within 2 weeks on the team, takes over as the starter, and wins 5 straight. Right? A little bit of that magic, right? A little bit of that Purdy magic that we saw. A little bit of that Purdy magic. So I understand that thought process, but the beauty of this is we don't have to pay Purdy. We don't have to pay Purdy, and players can win and lose jobs week to week. So that's the thing. I don't think Purdy is Jimmy. I think Purdy has a I think he has like a doctorate level of understanding this offense where like like Jimmy Garoppolo is out here cooking with and I don't want to disrespect Jimmy. I'm trying to think, I didn't go through all this college, stuff. I went to art school after I stopped playing football. But what did like he get I don't want to say he got an AA, but he got like a just a standard degree, I guess. He just got a standard degree. Like Jimmy just got he knew how to operate the offense, but Purdy, he's got like a doctorate. Like he's got the highest level of like quarterback processing that I think might be out there. And that is why I think he has supreme confidence in himself. And I think that's why everyone around him has extreme confidence in himself as well. So Jimmy was good. I will never say Jimmy was bad. He had bad moments, but he was a good quarterback. Purdy's processing is different, way different. Um, I mean, again, like, and we saw it week to week. Was there room for improvement? Absolutely. Is there room for improvement? 100%. And we all know players do decline. So, and also after injury, they do decline. That is a very important distinction. Um, there are some anomalies. Joe Burrow, I think, is an anomaly of being able to bounce back off an ACL and have success. But when you look at guys like Derek Carr, before he broke his leg, was on his way to becoming one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Then he breaks his leg, and he's been a shell of himself, in my opinion, since. Marcus Mariota was on his way to really finding himself in the NFL. I think he tore his ACL, and then he was never the same after that. You look at Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was on his way to being one of the best quarterbacks in the league, tears his ACL, has to watch his team win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, never the same. So there is RG. Someone said RG3 in the chat. RG3 looked like a difference maker, like a future Hall of Famer, like just something we've never seen in this league before. Oh, we've seen it. We saw Vic do it, and we've seen other athletic quarterbacks do it before. But RG3 was that new wave, right? RG3 goes down, never the same after that. So there is a world that exists where I can rationalize that there is a world where Brock does go down because he's returning from an injury. And because I have played, even if I haven't played, I've injured myself in probably over 30 different ways imaginable. And I've experienced the mental side of dealing with injuries. And I think that's the hardest part is we focus on the physical aspects of injuries. It's the mental aspects of injuries that I think really, really hamper some athletes from returning and being who they once were because they're creates this like self-doubt unconsciously or this like just they lose a little bit of that invincibility that they may have had prior that made them great. And so there's a potential. I don't think that will happen though. I mean, everything that I've heard about and these that what I'm speaking to also specifically is lower uh is like the lower leg injuries. I think quarterbacks that deal with lower body injuries have a lot harder time bouncing back than, maybe I don't know. We'll see. We I think there's only been two quarterbacks that have suffered torn UCLs in this league, and it was Nick Mullins and Brock Purdy. So I think there's a small sample size, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You're not ready to go all in on Brock because look at what the 49ers went all in on Jimmy and look at how that turned out. So I can understand that a little bit. All right. Finally getting your super chat, Tyler. Appreciate your patience as we work our way down. Chat's on fire today. Shout out to chat. You guys are killing it. Shout out to SDS. If you guys are new here, hit that sub button. And of course, if you haven't, smash that like button. Let's cook, baby. Uh, I got some time, so we're just cooking today. Uh, so Tyler says, I think it's mostly our lofty expectations, and that is why Trey has a short leash. Also, we have a roster that is in win now, which is unfortunate for Lance. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I think that's why, like, I think probably when you commented this and I was saying, like, it was discussed as the San Francisco 49ers being the best spot for a rookie quarterback. It, in fact, turned out to be probably one of the worst spots for Trey Lance because from what we've come to learn is that it does appear that Trey Lance did need some time, did need some reps and a lot of reps. And the 49ers were still very focused on winning football games, less about developing a quarterback in real time, if that makes sense. So, because we had the roster that we had, the 49ers still felt the pressure to compete for a Super Bowl, and they got damn close. That's the crazy part is they got damn close. They ended up being right, you know. Um, so because Trey landed on this particular roster, I don't think they were as willing to be like, yeah, man, just go start. It's your job. Go develop, and we'll see how you look in a couple years. Kind of like Justin Fields. Like, I think Justin Fields' situation is actually going to benefit Justin Fields. I think the terrible rookie season with terrible coaching and dysfunction, then getting a GM head coach that seemed much more capable, and are building around him and giving him that time. Like, I could see Justin Fields this next year take a huge leap. Like, I could see Justin Fields being potentially a top 8 to 10 quarterback, um, without too much, you know, discourse over it, because of his developmental path, because of all the reps that he's gotten and what he's been able to experience and then transition into a quality, good environment. So yeah, it's a lot of expectations, the age. Uh, yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's kind of what I'm feeling, man. Uh, like Jalen Hurts wasn't Jalen Hurts until he was Jalen Hurts. Uh, when you look at Josh Allen, people forget we talk about Josh Allen and Trey synonymously almost because Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen until he was Josh Allen, and it took year 3. So that's why Trey going into year 3 with 4 starts and a massive injury under his belt is a bit concerning in the sense of what the 49ers are trying to do with them because we just don't know. We just don't know. Sourdough Sam, what's up, Dad? Says all 3 quarterbacks can have their best year till injured. Yeah, man. Like we just need to stay healthy. That's really what it comes down to. Health is wealth, baby. Stay healthy, and then we'll see what we got. But yeah, man, we need these boys to stay healthy. That's definitely what we're looking for right now. But we have 2 quarterbacks that are healthy, and those 2 quarterbacks are Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. So we're in for it, baby. It's going to be a nutty training camp, man. Like, it's gonna be intense. I can't wait to cover this training camp. It's gonna be so much fun, man. Uh it's gonna be a blast. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to it. And again, all eyes are gonna be on Trey. That's the thing. All eyes are on Trey. No one cares about Sam Darnold, which gives Sam Darnold some power, I think. So that's why we can't rule out Sammy. What a world we live in. Where we got Sam Darnold on the San Francisco 49ers. We got a 3rd round pick, or excuse me, we got a number 3 overall pick competing with a number 3 overall pick to win the job for Mr. Relevant. What a wild time to be alive. Baby. Baby. Crazy time. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. It's going to be an experience. But the positives is that the roster is really good. I still have a lot of faith in this roster. So if we get competent play out of the quarterback, the 49ers should win a lot of games. The 49ers should still be a playoff team. Just got to win those games. Just got to get some competent play from the quarterback position, whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Brock Purdy. So we shall see how that goes. Any other questions that you guys got for me? I'm if the 49ers can somehow do what we all know they should do and go out and trade for Brian Burns, absolutely a potato could be our quarterback, and we're winning the Super Bowl. So that's how it's going to go. That's how it's going to go. I don't. Did you guys see Chris Sims saying that the 49ers should trade Trey Lance? Boy. What a wild time it is, man. What a wild time it is. It's funny that Eagles fans still try to victory lap beating the 49ers with no quarterback and losing and getting exposed to the Chiefs. But go off, King. Go off. Why is Brock Purdy considered the next coming of greatness? I just think because he's proven he has elite intangibles. And again, people get focused on the measurables, the physical tools, and they get enamored with the physical tools. What's really hard to evaluate is the intangible tools. And I think he has elite intangibles. Elite intangibles. Sourdough Sam, appreciate the super chat, says, who's the starting right tackle and right guard if had to be picked today? It would be Colton McKivitz and Spencer Burford if I had to pick today. Training camp will discern if it's going to be a rookie starting at right tackle or John Feliciano starting at right guard. But if I had to pick today, it would be hands down Burford and McKivitz at right tackle. But again, I think training camp could change that. I think both positions will be pushed with competition. I still think the 49ers are going to target right tackle early. If I had to choose a position to play, if I were to choose a position, what O-line position would I play today? Well, I was a center guard when I played, so I would probably stick with center. I like center. Center's fun, man. I like having the ball in my hand every play. 100%. Could you see the Niners attacking D-line as aggressively in the draft as they did in free agency by adding Hargrave? 100%. I still think it's the trenches, man. I still think it's the trenches. O-line, D-line. O-line, D-line, get some ancillary pieces on the back end. Who said we're the Chiefs? No one said we're the Chiefs. We said you lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I know it's hard to understand sometimes. Um, no one here said we are the Chiefs. We said you lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs because your secondary was what did Ayuk say? What did Ayuk say that was going to happen? Oh yeah, that's right. You got exposed. Just like Brandon Ayuk told you you were going to. So no, we aren't the Chiefs. Look around. I don't see anything Chiefs related. I got a bag of chips in my background that has a 49er logo on it. No one here is saying we're the Chiefs. We're saying you got exposed by the Chiefs. I think there's a big difference. Big difference in that translation. And again, it was technically prophesized by Brandon Ayuk. So no, we're not the Chiefs. You got exposed by the Chiefs, just like Brandon Ayuk told you were. Feels bad, man. R.I.P. Bozo. Hashtag ratio. Get cooked birds. Y'all suck. Can't wait for next year, man. Can't wait. These Eagles fans really think they got a leg to stand on, and it is hilarious. Like, it is literally hilarious. Oh, look at these 49 31-7. Like, you guys are victory lapping, beating a team with no quarterback. Good job. Way to get cooked in the Super Bowl. Trash. Can't wait. Can't wait till next year. Very much looking forward to that Eagles matchup. Also, I love that the Jason Kelsey talked about it. He's like, oh, he called it a rivalry. And I kind of like that. I like that the players are talking about it as a rivalry. So, yeah, I'll go out there and play cornerback for them. No, they got cornerback. They got Slay and Bradbury. I'll go play safety for them. That's what I'll do. I'll go play safety for them. He's still here. Matt Mayoko put out an article saying that he expects Kalia Davis to be heavily relied on in the rotation. So he's still here. He's still here. Schedule hasn't been released yet, so not sure. But we know the 49ers are traveling back to Philly. So they're going back to Philly. Now, I will be honest, those Philly fans are crazy. They really are. All of them. All of them. Just crazy. Their favorite thing to do is flip people off. I mean, favorite thing to do. Like they stay flipping the bird. I don't know if that's a coincidence because they're a bird team, but man, they are a wild bunch. But I hope it's week 1. No, middle of the year. I want to get through like the preseason for the starters. I want middle of the year. I think that would be clutch for sure. How do I think Deebo is going to perform next year? Hopefully better. I would say he had a down year, especially with what the expectations were for Deebo, what his pay would be expected to be. I think Deebo is very competitive, and I do think Deebo, does see that the love that the 49ers have for Ayuk, and you got a big conversation. And, shout out to Aponte. I think he partly started it, but like, who'd you rather have, Ayuk or Deebo? And everyone's like, Ayuk. I hope that pushes him a little bit. I'll be honest. I think Deebo's a phenomenal player. I still think he's a phenomenal player. And he has absolutely the opportunity to do phenomenal things. But hey, man, I'm down to poke him a little bit. I love you, Deebo. Don't punch me, man. So when I went to the Oakley event that Deebo put on, I was basically media there, so I was behind the scenes, and got right next to Deebo, and doing all the filming and all the shooting. This dude is huge. Like, he is big. Like, he is as tall. Like, I swear he's as tall as I am. I'm 6'3". And he's big. I was like, no wonder you're so hard to tackle. I was like, you're huge. I was like, I don't know why you look so much smaller on TV or in pads, but like standing face to face with Deebo, I'm like, damn, dude, you are huge. He's big. I was like, damn, I would never want to tackle you. Like, never. Like, man, you move that fast, that quick, and you're that big. No wonder no one can tackle you. Like, dude's a brick house. I was like, holy crap, man. So I hope he has a good year, man. I hope he does. But shout out to all you guys, man. Appreciate you all tapping in. Today was a fun live. Today was a good live. Shout out to everyone sending super chats. We almost went 2 hours again. Grab your cookies on the way out, especially if you stayed through yet again for this one. And again, don't forget, smash that like button on your way out as a courtesy. We would very much appreciate it. Shout out to all my SDS gang. Appreciate all you guys on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff, man. You guys are the best. And just wait. Just wait. We are going to have an action-packed offseason. I can't complain. As a content creator, I cannot complain, but this is going to be, there's going to be a lot of storylines. There's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. Get ready, get prepared, get your cookies, and enjoy. Appreciate you all, as always. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.